Hello and welcome to episode number 111 of the Board Game Barrage podcast, a podcast about board games, the latest hotness, and how to have fun with your friends, even when you're losing. I am your host of all the sequential number episodes, 111, 222, 333, all the way to...
We've only done one of them, and you're already
777. No, but Neelan confirmed the math.
The math checks out if we stick to our.
And we do. We're nothing.
We're nothing consistent. Yeah,
consistent.
Exactly.
Hello, Mark and Neelan. How are we doing today?
Doing great.
Good.
Doing fantastic.
Never been better.
Well, I'm always consistently good, so.
Fair enough. Today on the Board Game Barrage podcast, we're going to be talking about conventions and game nights and how we approach them as perhaps newbies to the hobby and how we approach them now, how our thoughts and feelings have changed, and some wisdom we've learned along the way.
The things that I have learned, the hard-won wisdom I have earned.
What's that? Who's that?
It's Hamilton.
Oh.
Callan.
We're going to get copyright strike.
Oh, that's true. That algorithm was...
Plug our... Yeah, they're going to pick up on that. Yeah. That was a very complimentary thing I said to you, Neelan.
Thank you.
But before we do that, as always, we will talk about the board games that we have been playing this week. Mark.
Yes.
Mark. Get set.
I love it.
Tell us about a game that you played.
I'm going to loop that at the end of the podcast
This
for
is the
sure.
new intro track.
For sure. I'm going to be lying here because we didn't play it this week, but Kellen and I played it a couple months ago, and you can see us play it because we played it with Lincoln, Nikki, and Dave on Game Night. This is BGG's video series Game Night. So you can watch us play this yourself by going to our homepage, boardgamebarrage.com. There should be a video player allowing you to watch it right there, or by following the link at boardgamebarrage.com/game night.
And if you're lucky, you can see a moment where Mark cheats on Game Night.
I cheat? Wait, what do I do?
I thought it was you who cheated.
Yeah, you cheated multiple times.
That's what I heard.
Nope. You'll have to answer that question for yourself, listeners, when you go on YouTube and watch the Game Night stream.
I encourage all our listeners to go to that stream and then find the time codes for when Kellen cheats and let us know. And go to boardgamebarrage.com/Discord and tell him yourself exactly when he cheats. Anyway, as a quick aside, this was a thrill for me because I've been watching Game Night since its first season. I think it's on season 7 now. They've done hundreds of episodes, and I was a big fan of Dave, who is their primary game teacher, and we got to play with Dave, so that's very, very cool.
It was a very fun time, and we're super appreciative that they invited us on. It was one of those situations. It reminded me of being a child, and my mom would take me somewhere, and she would say, "Don't say that, and don't talk about this, and be nice to Lincoln."
Right.
And so Mark's enthusiasm for the program was kind of fun, kind of even going into it.
I think I said something on the show that had them do an edit that I've never seen before on a Game Night episode. So they did like an overlay. I won't say exactly what it's about, but if you watch the video...
What's it about?
You can watch the video.
I haven't watched the video. What do you think? I've watched the video.
Yeah.
When did I have an hour to watch me play a game I've already played?
I watch myself all the time. Anyway... So yeah, I think they've never done that before. So yes, we played Fast Sloths. Fast Sloths is a pick up and deliver game where you are the thing being picked up and delivered. You are a sloth trying to go around grabbing leaves. The first person to get, I think it's like 8 leaves, wins the game. And so the way you do it is you are manipulating various animals using some card play to help you get around the board and grab your leaves. So the game comes with 12 types of animals that you can play with, but you select 6 of them for any one game. So, for example, in our game, we had ants, we had donkeys, we had alligators.
Unicorn.
Eagle. And one other one. There are also, like, humans you can play with. I said alligator already. Was it alligator or crocodile? There was a joke about this.
There was a big joke about this.
Yeah, watch the video.
I did like a who can say, and then someone was like, no, you can't say. It's on the card.
So what you're doing in your turn is you're drawing 2 or 3 cards. You must draw from different types of animals, and all the cards have the animal and a number associated with the animal. And then you draw 2 or 3 cards, and then you play cards. When you play cards, you're playing one type of animal, but you can play as many cards of that type of animal as you want, and then you manipulate the animal to move you around the board. So, for example, the elephant, which I think is the one that I didn't mention. If I played 6 points of elephant, I could move the elephant tokens. So some animals have a number of tokens. The eagle, there's only one unicorn. I think there are a couple elephants. I could move the elephant up to 6 spaces, including him picking me up. So it could be like move him 1, 2, 3, pick me up, and then 4, 5, 6, and then drop me off. The thing about the elephant is he throws you with his trunk. So you get an additional 3 points of movement when the elephant throws you off. That's the elephant's sort of power. The power of the eagle is that no matter where you are, the eagle comes to you and then moves you in a straight line, irrespective of the terrain type. Some animals can't travel on certain types of terrain. Some animals do. There is the ants. The ants are they're more of like an infrastructure thing where there's a lot of ants on the board and you can split your movement up across the different ants and then the ants sort of carry you. So it's just sort of interesting. Game moves really, really fast. Very simple rule set. As you progress, as you pick up more and more leaves, which again is the victory condition, the game becomes more and more restrictive. So that's sort of like a catch-up mechanism where players who are still behind can draw more cards and play more cards and hold more cards in hand. Once you get towards the end of the game, you're drawing like one card and your hand limit becomes just a few cards. So it's much more tight at the end. So it's also a thing in addition to being a catch-up mechanism, it's something to consider. You may want to have a lot of cards early because you know you're not going to be able to draw very many late. And so it's sort of hard to get more cards in hand toward the end. What did you think of Fast Sloths, Kellen?
There's something just so refreshing about a designer like Friedman Freeze or these old school designers like Uwe Rosenberg and Reiner Knizia, where when you start playing it, you just know that it's been thought about.
I agree completely.
Where some of these new modern releases, you're just like, did they think about this? We got halfway through this game and this does not seem right at all. So this is a very tight experience. The hand card play was fun. Figuring out who was going where on the board was fun because everyone starts in a different place. So you're having to decide, should I follow right behind Mark and sort of draft on his ants? Should I go a completely different way than everyone else? It's sort of this not mid-weight, but filler plus. It's like the perfect opener, perhaps, for a game night for a group of like heavier gamers because you could get through it in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
I think the perhaps upside and downside of the 12 different animals and only playing with 6 of them is that a lot of the rules overhead is buried within individual animals. I was eager to play it again. I was eager to try other animals. I'm not 100% sold that it's one I, want to buy immediately, but I've also never been the biggest pick up and deliver boy.
Yeah. In terms of like the weight and who it's for, it's interesting because I think it's a great, like you said, opener for people who are into board games in general. But I also feel like it's like also could be a heavy end game for a family who's not really into board games. And the art is sort of cartoonish and the theme is light. For me, after playing this and then playing Fresh Fish for the first time earlier in the year, I'm really now looking for Friedman Freeze games because these two have been absolute hits for me. I was really, really a big fan of Fast Sloths.
From what I saw of it, and I really do
You didn't watch all of it?
I've definitely watched all of it.
Great.
Yeah, from having seen all of it multiple times,
it's your absolute favorite.
It's my favorite YouTube video. I'd recommend it highly. But no, the game looks really, really fun. I like a lot of what it's doing. It's essentially a race game where you have this variance, and I kind of like the idea. I know you said that it was something that would hold you back, but I like the idea of every game having a slightly different rule set to the animals you pick. There's just something that sounds really fun about that to me. Like for a game that the theme is not speaking to me, like I saw that and I was just
how does animal themed not?
It's not like it's like exciting me is what I mean. I'm not like I didn't look at it and be like, oh my god, no, it's fun. The theme's fun, but it's not exciting to me.
Sure.
But mechanically, it seemed really, really interesting.
Yes.
And I like, especially considering like what you're saying about like the mathematical rigor, which I think is something that's true of these German designers. That makes me like super excited about digging into all the different animals.
Sloths don't excite you, but mathematical rigor excites you.
Yeah, that's me.
What
in
a
a
state of
nutshell.
affairs.
If the theme was switched to his homeland of kangaroos and koalas,
Oh my god.
then he'd be into it.
And shrimps on the Barbies. Also, this game sort of struck me as was kind of like Ethnos, but instead of area majority, pick up and deliver. It's like hand management. Like hand management is basically like the bulk of the game, but also turns moving really fast. It doesn't whip around as fast as Ethnos, but it was moving pretty quickly. And I like that we were playing a 5-player game, and I felt like I had enough time to think about my next turn, and the board state didn't change so much generally. And then it was my turn again. So
yeah, I think I was extremely happy that we were playing a good game, because our smiles and enthusiasm were not vain.
Right. And spoiler alert, I lost to Dave on the tiebreaker, which was perfect. I want to win every game, but if I'm going to losing to Dave on a tiebreaker was perfect. So that was Fast Sloths by Friedman Freeze.
So a couple games that I have played that I'm excited to get to talking about. And the first one is called Birdie Fight. And I have played this 2-player, and We are going to play this 3-player and 4-player. We're going to play this at Dice Tower West, which we're going to this week. So I will not belabor it, but it's essentially a little bit kinder, a little bit nicer, a little bit better, a little bit more Japanese than Arboretum.
Okay.
So it's a spatial puzzle. It's a hand management game. The art is adorable.
Yes, I can vouch for that.
And had I played this prior to our Thanksgiving episode all about the Burbs, this game would have won first place, second place, third place, fourth place, and fifth place, beating Wingspan in all categories for best bird game. But that is Birdie Fight.
We didn't have Wingspan on our list.
That's the joke.
The joke. What do you mean? Of course.
Okay.
What do you mean? That's literally the... Oh.
Okay. All right.
It's like the grandpa going like, well, wait a minute. Come on, dude.
All right. That's
another game that we all got to try was Sorcerer City from Druid City Games. This is a family weight real-time tile drafting game where you're playing wizard architects building your city over and over again. I'm not a big real-time guy. I don't really like Galaxy Trucker. This has some interesting elements to it where you're getting monsters added to your deck, which reminded me of Cartographers. A little bit of deck building where you're building your tiles. You're buying them from a tableau. It ended up being a lot lighter than I had anticipated, and the production is marvelous, has the best coins I may have ever seen in a game that sort of stack on each other that are metal and fun, but we've only played it a few times. The game that I really want to talk about that Neelan and I played yesterday was Electropolis. So Electropolis was a birthday gift from me to Neelan.
Explain that.
So I wanted a game.
Okay.
And I looked and saw this is a little bit too expensive for me to give to myself for no context. But wait a minute, isn't it almost Neelan's birthday?
I'm willing to spend any amount of money on him.
Right. I care about him so much.
Yes.
So much. Electropolis comes to us from Taiwan. So it's all Asian countries for me and not just the land down under.
That's
Japan.
not bad.
Great. I don't want to bury the lead. I really enjoyed our play of Electropolis. Electropolis features a bidding phase, which determines the order in which you are taking tiles that are circling the center board. And when you take tiles, you must take them adjacent to each other. So the first player to bid gets to bid how many tiles they want to take, 2 to 6. But if they choose 2, they get to go first. They get to take those 2 first. If they choose 6, they have to go after every other player. And so it's an excruciating bidding phase where someone goes, I'll take 3, and hoping that other players will go behind them or hoping other players will go in front of them. And then as tiles are taken from the circle, those adjacencies are closed in, and so some of the options change. In addition to that, you draft a card from a set of cards, and these cards determine where on your own home grid you're allowed to play. You may only be allowed to play in the top left corner or the top right corner. In addition to that, on those cards, there's a victory condition, perhaps, for what you may score at the end of the game. Essentially, you're drafting coal, gas, or nuclear power plants, and then the fuel that you need to power them in order to score victory points. And you want the buildings to be next to each other because that helps them score more points, but you need the appropriate fuel in order to have them trigger. The nuclear power plants need nuclear waste facilities that can only go in the top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right corner of your board. In addition to that, you're constantly thinking about the threat of pollution because each of your buildings will pollute if they produce, and you have been raising your public good. If your public good has to be equal to your pollution at the end of the game, or you lose exponential points equal to the difference. So if you have 20 pollution and only 13 public good, then you lose 49 points. And so it's an absurd amount of points to go, I'm 4 away, and that's 16 points.
Right.
Gets worse and worse. I'm going to stop explaining. Neelan, how did you feel about Electropolis?
I loved it. So I knew when I read the rules that this type of spatial tile game is way up my alley. So I think there's not a whole lot more to be said about that specifically. Like, the scoring is really cool. The way you sort of place the tiles in order to maximize your points is fun. There are other little fun buildings, like ones that give you support, ones that reduce pollution, that sort of thing. All great. But the auction bidding phase in this is what really, really elevates it. When you sort of see the array of new tiles at the beginning, you're just honing in on certain sections, being like, well, if I were to take 4, I would be okay with this slot. I ideally want this slot. How soon am I willing to go in order to get the 2 tiles I specifically need, or am I just going to be happy with a grab bag of 6 if I'm willing to let it go that long? And there are times where, depending on what comes out, you might be like, okay, there's enough fuel scattered around the array that I'll just take 6 and just hope for what's good when it comes out. There's other fun stuff in that if you take a tile, you must be able to place it immediately or you'll lose potential points for it. So it's not enough to just say, I'll settle for what's less, because if you can't play it, you might just be out of luck. There's a lot of really good consideration just built around this one board, this one bidding, turn order, tile grabbing bidding board. And that was the crux of the game for me. I found the scoring was a little bit convoluted, but it all happens at the end of the game and in a game that plays in about an hour. The other thing I thought was beautiful about it is the art style. And the production in general, all the tiles are these beautiful sort of thick board. It has a very minimalist style that I think is very reminiscent of Sashi and Sashi or Oink games specifically. Just a very clean aesthetic. It just looks really good once you have your city laid out.
It has the heftiest cloth bag I've ever seen in a board game box.
So hefty that the box doesn't close, sadly. I had a great time with this. It ticks enough of all the boxes that I like. I love those sort of cutthroat, doesn't seem like the right word, but an auction phase where you have to be very considerate of other players as well as quite considerate of what you're building on your spatial grid.
Yeah, it doesn't feel mean, but it does feel harsh.
Yes.
Because, one of the other negatives about choosing to take 2 tiles and going first is in the subsequent round, that means you get to bid last. So it's very, very expensive to say, I must have these 2 tiles. Mm-hmm. And I think you're 100% right that without this first phase, the game would be neutered. And it would, and it would be perhaps more reminiscent of a heavy roll and write.
Yeah.
Not exactly, but in the genre or the realm of. But this bidding really elevates it to something that just makes me go, wow, I'd love to play this again immediately.
Yeah, sounds really cool. I really love that bidding thing. So in your experience, there were times where bidding early or bidding late were considerations there. Yeah,
no, 100%. There were rounds where I went for the 6 and there were rounds where I went for the 2.
Yeah, okay.
100%.
Very cool. I like that.
Yeah, because those cards that you also draft in that order.
Oh, I see.
One of them could be a per round scoring. It's score 1 point per this type of building you have in your city. Yeah. And if you're the guy who's been collecting nuclear buildings, like I was, that guy the guy who cares about the thorium reactors, like Kellen, I will say I won. Nuclear always wins, people.
The other fun consideration now that I'm thinking about that is, for example, because of those 4 cards, there might be one, say, that because of the placement rule, really messes you up, and you just think, I'm not going to be left with that card. Surely I'm not going to be left with that card, right. And then you are left with that card, obviously. And that's always fun.
That is Electropolis from Homo Sapien Labs.
The game that I played, and Mark has also played this recently, is Isle of Cats. This is a very lavish Kickstarter game that's just fulfilled in the recent weeks. It is a game of rescuing polyomino cats from this island and placing them onto your ship. Your ship has a bunch of different regions, so say each of the different rooms, the decks, and you want to try full regions in order to get points. There are also rats scattered throughout the ship, and every rat that's uncovered is a negative point at the end of the game. You also are gaining scoring cards, which might change the things you're required to do or what you're aiming to do on your board, such as filling out different rooms, doubling your points for rats, and that sort of thing. The crux of the game is a drafting phase. So every round you get a certain number of fish to spend on cards. You draft cards, and you're left with 7?
Yeah,
cards?
something like that.
You're left with 7 cards, of which you can then choose to spend your fish on to buy. So this is Terraforming Mars style, where you draft and then choose to purchase of the cards you've drafted. There's a whole bunch of different things in these cards. These could be getting you new wild cats, or getting you new ways to score, or new public lessons which will affect everyone at the table and affect the way that you score at the end of the game. And in addition to that, this is also the way that you will acquire cats against your ship, because you have to draft these cages, which is how you actually get cats at all during that phase of the game. All the cats also have different colors, so there are benefits for grouping cats together by the same color. There might be ways you might want to create, depending on the scoring cards you've drafted, rows of cats, columns of cats. So there's a whole bunch going on in this game. For what on the surface would just look like a simple polyomino tile game, there's a whole lot to it. There's drafting, there's sort of resource management in the fish, and it just is a beautiful production. Everything is bright and colorful. Everyone's ship is going to look pretty unique based on how they've been trying to lay out their cats by the groups of colors. I really enjoyed this, Mark. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I liked it a lot too. It's funny because I wasn't really thinking about the Terraforming Mars similarities, but hearing you say it, it does have that Terraforming Mars thing where you're just getting a ton of cards at the beginning of every round and then just buying the ones that work for you. The game felt a little bit on the loose side, which is good for a game like this. I didn't feel very harsh, to harken back to our episode from last week. So I always felt like, and maybe this is also a function of drafting so many cards, that I always felt there was ways to do things. The production is great. It's just beautiful and funny. And also it moved very quickly, which is a thing that I liked about it as opposed to, say, Terraforming Mars. One of the things that I don't like so much about Terraforming Mars is that it's relatively long. I've only played it a couple times and never with any of the expansions, so that may be mitigated now. But my experience with Terraforming Mars has been it goes a little bit long. Isle of Cats, for us, we played a 3-player game and got done in about 45 minutes to an hour.
I will say, just to counter that point, the game does go up to 6, and I would say that is a very long game. It's,
right.
So
I can see that.
Yeah, so I think it probably hits the sweet spot at around three or four players. Yeah.
But yeah, it has that, again, that Terraforming Mars thing where you're getting a bunch of cards and you're trying to figure out the engine you want to build and the scoring. You know, you're drafting scoring cards pretty much every round. So every round you're going to acquire more cards that are going to sort of point you in a direction and a way to sort of progress and a way to figure out where you're going to lay these cats out. So it's very puzzling. There are some interactions, and actually, speaking of interactions, the hate drafting is pretty strong in this one because you're drafting so many cards and you know you're going to have a lot of cards at the end that if you know that a card is going to really work for somebody, you don't really mind holding it in lieu of maybe taking another card because you know you're going to have a bunch of options at the end. So I found that I was more inclined to hate draft in this game than in maybe a lot of other drafting games.
Yeah, the way the fish economy works in that regard is interesting because you have enough fish to buy 3 or 4 cards. So like you said, you have leeway to draft more than you actually need, but you're also spending the fish to rescue the cat, so there's some consideration there.
Yeah.
I was actually surprised by how much there is to think about during the drafting phase because of just how many different elements there are. It does have, like you say, that sort of everything in the kitchen sink sort of Kickstarter approach to it, which in contrast to what we were saying about Freedom and Freeze games where they just feel tight and honed.
Yeah.
This does feel like maybe it's a bit much for what it is, but I certainly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's very, very pleasant.
Very pleasant.
Yeah. And again, not harsh at all. So it's like colorful, pleasant, fun, fairly quick. You're going to have a good time playing it, I think.
Yeah.
2 questions.
Okay.
First question.
So I'll already answer this question. I already know it. So it's called Isle of Cats because then you say Isle of Cats. Okay, what's question number 2?
It's closed. Why are the cats going on a boat?
Oh, it's actually a pretty dark story. Frank, who owns the game, who taught it to me, was saying something like, for every round that you don't save cats, all the cats that are left over round to round are killed by the fascists who are left on the island. So, like, the cats that are wiped are actually killed. So for a game that's, like, very light and colorful,
Right,
remember that.
A lot of cats dying every round.
This is real.
No, it's real.
No, that's 100% true.
And then 2, like, what success of the game is due to the cats and the love of cats? Like, if this is Isle of Trading in the Mediterranean.
Yeah, no, I think the cuteness of the cats definitely pushes it over the edge. But, you know, this game has similarities for sure to, like, Feast for Odin in terms of the play on modes.
Goody.
Feast for Odin is a successful game. A lot of people like it, and that's a much more common theme. So there is certainly part of it. Part of it is the cuteness of the cats and all that stuff, and it's done well, for sure.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like, I don't think the cats specifically did much for me. Like, the vibrancy of the colors
You
and
don't like
art.
cats?
Well, not that I don't like cats, but I think you could have replaced that. I did not say I don't like cats. Don't you dare. But I think you could have replaced this with any number of
dogs,
not even just animals, but any number of things, because it's the art and the colors that really work for me.
So we figured out that Nealon is anti-cat and anti-sloth.
That's true.
And pro what? German math?
Yeah, that's
true.
Sort of
mathematical rigor.
Robot.
There's Isle of Cats by the City of Games.
So when this episode drops, we will be driving our way to Dice Tower Con West. If you're going to be at Dice Tower Con West, please join our Discord at boardgamebarrage.com/Discord. We'd love to meet up and play games with you. We don't have a whole lot scheduled, which is amazing.
Yes, great.
We just want to play games. We want to play games with you. I am putting together a list, and it will be on the Discord of maybe 10 or 15 games I'm just looking to give away to people. I don't want them in my house.
People?
To listeners.
What
Mark
you give it
just
away to me?
collapsed.
So, we'll make a post about that on Twitter and on Facebook. But if you come into the Discord, there may be some free games. I can't guarantee their quality, but I can guarantee their freeness. What?
That's good.
Just a quick shout for reviews and telling a friend about the Board Game Barrage podcast. Some of the great things that you can do to help support the show are supporting us on Patreon at patreon.com/boardgamebarrage, telling a friend about the show, recommending it at game night. We have a listener that's going to put up a poster at his local game store, which is cool and exciting, or leaving just a review of the podcast. Every way you can help spread the word helps us out tremendously, and we're super appreciative of that.
Speaking of Patreon, I think our Patreon listeners may be getting access to a rather artistic, unique video that Kellen and Neelan shot over the weekend.
It's too late. It's too bad the Oscar season's already passed us by.
We are looking to explore video here at Board Game Barrage, and this is our first exploration, which is being called Vlog 0. That will probably remain exclusive.
It will remain exclusive.
So,
our Patreon backers will know exactly why it's exclusive to them when they see it.
Because it's too good for public consumption. Anyway, moving on to our featured topic, which is a bit of a then and now and later, here and then sort of.
You guys ever have now and laters? I don't like them.
Love them.
Do you?
Wait, what's now and later?
Oh, God, forget about it. Don't even try to describe it.
No,
It's lying.
I
He
know.
can tell.
No, I can
This
see that
feels
you
like
would know.
American cool.
It is an American coolness. It is. It's a candy.
It's like,
Uh,
imagine if there was a Starburst
yeah.
Okay,
that was
good.
a little flatter,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
and then when you went to bite into its goodness, it got stuck to your teeth,
Yeah,
and it
grabbed
hurt
your
like
teeth.
hell.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I have a. Okay, this is gonna sound
What is
weird.
it called in South Africa?
No. But I really love chewy gummies that do get stuck in your teeth. I don't know why specifically, but it sounds like I would be all over now and laters.
All right.
So there are fruit gums, which Roundtrees do, which is a UK South African company, and they're notorious for you bite them and you're just fishing them out of your teeth for days later. So
And that's a pleasant feeling.
yeah, for me, I'm all about that. It's right up there with mathematical rigor.
We're going to be talking about our approach to conventions and game night and sort of where we started and where we are now and the wisdom that we have learned along the way. So why don't we start with game night? And why don't we not start with me, though I'm the most interesting? Why don't we start with Neelan? You tell us sort of your basic approach to game night when you first got into games and how that has changed over the years.
Yeah, I have a very specific arc to the way that I've approached game nights, which is that when I first started, I was brand new to the hobby when I moved out here, and I didn't have any games of my own. And there was, in fact, one person who was the games person, the host of our regular game night, Dean. So the idea of selecting games was a very different equation. What's happened in recent years is everyone comes to a game night with the games that they want to play, and it's kind of led to a lot more chaos. So I've started to rethink my approach to the way that I enter a game night and my willingness to concede on the games that I want to play. And I think this is largely true of conventions as well. Like the idea of me lugging games to a convention or to a game night and be like, these are the games I'm hoping to get played tonight. So it's sort of fallen by the wayside a little bit. And I'm sort of starting to learn, or hoping to learn, to just be more content with showing up, playing the games that, say, anyone wants to play, and just
So you're not bringing any games anymore?
I'm not, but I'm sort of trying to be less pushy about playing those specific games.
But doesn't that come with reading the rules and learning them that day?
That is part of the hard part of this. Is the other part of this is if I were to do this the way I've done this in the past, it would be learn the rules to 3 different games, end up just by matter of circumstance playing none of them. And that's part of the thing you sort of have to be okay with. So what I've started to do instead is maybe learn the rules to one game or refresh the rules to one game, hope to play that one, but then at least I haven't spent a large chunk of my day like learning rules and having none of those games played.
I'm actually sort of coming around to this myself. My habit was to, before a game night, for games specifically that I was bringing, learn the rules to all of them. You know, usually it would be like 3 of them, for example. And then, you know, when we got there, like you said, we might play them, we might not. And I did this a couple times, and it got to the point where, like, It never really bothered me, but when I looked back at it, it seemed silly that I spent like a chunk of my free day like learning rules to a game that I ended up not playing. And then, if you don't play a game, even if you have the rules, it's not like those are retained perfectly. So the next time you get a chance to play them, you find yourself having to relearn most, if not all of it.
That's the worst part, is that it wouldn't be so bad if it was actually gained knowledge. But I found more frequently that I'll just get to the next weekend and be like, I don't remember anything that I learned because actually playing a game is such an important part of like internalizing those rules. Yeah.
And so now I'm with you where I will learn a game that I really want to play. And, my level of insistence to play it varies. If it's something I really want to play, then I'll insist on it. But I'll try to limit it to like 1 or 2 games and then bring them. And if we don't end up playing it, it's not such a lost chunk of time.
And so is that universal advice for everyone?
Yeah, I think
to be less pushy about the specific games played.
I wouldn't say it's for me about being less pushy about the games played. I would say for me that maybe it's actually even the opposite. I would say don't learn the rules to a number of games, hoping maybe to get them all played. If you're bringing games to game night, bring 1 or 2 games that you really want to play. And I'm talking here about games you don't know, for example. Like, you can obviously bring the games you know, and then since you know them, it doesn't really matter if they're played or not because you've got the rules. But if you're going to invest the time in learning the rules of a game or 2, try to have that payoff.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And on that note, something else I've started to do more and more is pre-establish like interest in that specific game, so that at least elevate the chances that I will get that game played.
Yeah.
Like a hype man?
Yeah, exactly.
Like you send out a group text saying, guess what just got here?
Yeah, exactly.
85 pounds of Imperial anime trains. Mm-hmm. Who wants to play it with me? I will say my pushback to both of you is that I feel like there is this propensity in the hobby to not insist upon the games that you might be interested in playing, which can lead to like it taking a long time to figure out what people actually want to play. So if you come to a game night and you want to play something, you should say, I want to play this thing.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's part of what I'm saying. I guess maybe it wasn't clear enough, but if you're going to invest time to learning a game, you should be, as you're saying, more insistent on playing it. You should be more willing to push it as a game to play.
And this obviously depends because there are groups maybe where you're the only one buying the games, and then you're the sort of host, provider of everything, and that would change that dynamic.
Yeah.
I think for me, game night has changed and evolved for me. Game night is usually a place where I learn and find people to play games with, and then I prefer like more private places to actually playing them. And that relates to cons too, where, if it's me, you, Christina, and you, because no one can see who I'm pointing at. So there's 2 yous, Christina and me.
You're going to be pointing yourself.
All 3 times.
That's sort of my home base for board gaming right now, and game night is a great place to find people to have sort of a more consolidated experience with. For me and mine, the idea of going anywhere, going to any game night and playing with 15 or 16 people and just loosely mixing and matching with people is actually not my ideal state. With 4 players, I would like to have a strict set of players and here are the 3 things we're going to be playing and have that established before we even get there. That would be my ideal game night state right now. But I think that comes with feeling like I have hardcore board game friends, and if I didn't have those friends, then I'd be all about game night to try to maybe find those people.
Sure.
For me. So that's sort of the difference. I think I've used board games as a way to meet people in all the cities I've moved to as an adult.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've found an evolution for me in terms of game nights. When I first started really ramping up my gaming, I was going to basically like pretty much every meetup that I could to play as many games as I could. And I've met a lot of people who are now very good friends of mine from a bunch of different meetups. But I do find myself, now that I've found those friends across all these different meetups, wanting to play with them specifically more. So there's a give and take where, you want to put yourself out there to meet a bunch of new people, but it is nice that once you've sort of found yourself clicking with this person in this game night and this person here and maybe these 2 people there, you sort of then, maybe invite them over to your place or go to their place, and it becomes more
to make a podcast.
Exactly. And now you're here. So that has been an evolution in my gaming for sure.
In summation, the advice for me may be similar to both conventions and board game nights, but it is to understand and establish what you want to get out of it and then pursue that goal. So whether that's playing one specific game, whether that's learning a bunch of new games that you maybe have never seen before or getting exposed to new genres of games, or if it's find friends, which is in fact perhaps my only goal for game night in reality, to just think about that as you're pursuing different game nights you're looking to go
Right.
to.
Yeah.
So let us get to the other half of the... No, this isn't the other half of the now and later, because the now and later is the
We
time.
got 2 now and later.
So we've already...
When it comes to like Skittles and all these like hard candies, do you guys go like citrus? Do you guys like the lemons and the oranges and stuff like that?
Lemon, Starburst are my number one.
Oh my god, exact opposite. Well, we can split a bag really perfectly because I don't go for the lemons and the orange.
There was a girl in college who wanted to woo me, which was a common occurrence.
Okay.
And she bought like 4 or 5 bags of Starburst and then just put all the lemon ones in one bag and gave it to me as a present.
How about you, Neil? Are you a lemon?
It worked.
No, I do like citrusy. I like lemon drops and like sort of that citrusy candy.
No, but- okay.
But like I don't. Yeah, but in terms of like a bag of Skittles, like I don't have like a preference.
Oh, you'll just you'll
yeah,
you'll
not
take it as
really.
they come.
Yeah,
Orange
exactly.
Skittles.
Wow, we are exact opposite.
Okay.
I go purple and red.
If you suck on orange
Oh,
Skittles,
God.
they taste like orange Tic Tacs, which are great.
You are seeking out the Tic Tac experience through your Skittles. You can just buy a box of Tic Tacs. They're like
Also,
50 cents.
you can burn Starburst. That's pretty good too.
What?
What happens when you burn Starburst?
On the fire. What do you? This is Boy Scout 101, dude.
But do they just
They
melt?
start melting and they taste good.
What?
Oh, so you make them soft and then eat them.
You like lick up melted Starburst?
That's
What's
right,
the end
baby.
game here? Yeah.
You eat them. What do you mean the
Okay.
end game? They're Starburst.
All right.
Moving on.
And transition.
Conventions. What did you think before you went to your first board game convention? What do you think now as we prepare together to go to Dice Tower Con West?
The advice or experience kind of dovetails with what we're talking about with game nights. Like before I went to my first convention, I just sort of imagined that I'd be just playing games indiscriminately, like whatever. Just plop a game in front of me and I'm just going to be playing it. I've got like a whole day of gaming. I'm just going to like get through as many games as I can. I don't care. Just the newest game, whatever. Just put them out in front of me. As we're getting ready to go to Dice Tower West, what I'm looking forward to is like playing the games that I want to play. It's more about like curating the experience. Like I've got a bunch of games that I haven't played and I'm really excited to like get those games out.
Like what?
I'm thinking about us doing 1889. I feel like it's a good convention game. I'd have to look, but as I was listing games for the Dice Tower auction and trying to figure out which games I was looking to sell or not, I just saw a bunch of games that I hadn't played, and I was thinking, wow, like this is a time that we could actually play these games.
I agree with you in theory, but I think that what's happened to me in the past is I've sort of, again, set my expectations too high on the games I think that are going to get played. For example, like when we've done BarageCon in the past, we all end up lugging like, oh, these are the games that we're finally going to get the chance to play. Yeah. We're going to have that 8-player Gods of Atlantis game. And then it's a matter of like trying to meet everyone's expectations for the convention or the weekend. And sometimes those plans fall by the wayside a little bit.
And maybe that's like a thing to do, is actually to do some planning.
I think that's exactly it, because I think one of the things that we did do at the last BarageCon is we did a big Cthulhu Wars game, and we had been talking about it for a long time, and that was the time to do it. So we just said, hey, we're going to find some time during this weekend to do Cthulhu Wars.
I think that's the piece of advice, and I may have given this before, is that to know what your must do is for the convention and then seek to make that happen.
Yeah.
Like, I will not be happy on this vacation if I don't do X.
Right.
And that'll get away from you at a big convention like Gen Con. You know, like, oh, I want to check out the unpublished prototype room.
Yeah.
And you'll never even find it. You've been wandering around the hall for 4 days unless you explicitly say, on Friday morning, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, and that was the thing I was going to say. Like, on that note, if you're traveling with other people, make that plan explicit to everyone else. Don't just keep it as something to yourself that you're going to be discontent if this doesn't happen. Let people know, like, hey, this is the one thing I would really like to do. And then everyone maybe has their specific thing, and then collectively find a way to make all of that happen.
One of the things that I am personally looking forward to at Dice Tower Con West is that we will be all driving up together to Las Vegas, and we'll be starting a game of Don't Get Got as we get in the car. So Don't Get Got is recently recommended by Shut Up and Sit Down. It's a game where everyone has like 5 or 6, and I haven't read the rules yet, but 5 or 6 actions that they're trying to get other players to do. Like get someone to say the number 25, and then they get got. And so it's going to add a layer of paranoia to our trip as we attempt to make each other do things without knowing why.
Yeah, this seems really cool. Like I remember like seeing it at Shucks. I think people were actively playing it there and thinking it seemed neat. I'm excited for that.
All right, let's put our money where our mouth is. Let's be accountable. I'm going to go through some of the games that I would like to play at Dice Tower West, and if all of us agree, we're going to put it on a list of games to play.
Ooh, I like this.
Okay, and then we can actually check back in, and we can be held accountable by our listeners. So, but we all have to agree to it. If any of us say no to it, then it's not on the list of games to play. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. 1889. Is that a yes for sure or no?
I don't think that's a convention game.
Okay, that's fair. I get that.
I could be convinced that for the same reasons as Kellen. Like, I think that I would want a quieter, more make a day of it environment
Sure.
for that.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And TK2? Any itching for that?
Yeah, I would do that.
Yes.
Okay, put it on the list. TK2.
I actually don't know too much about Antike 2, except I've heard it's really, really good from Mark Bigney. So
Bigney's a big fan of it. And
what's the deal?
It's a Mac Gertz civilization game. It's supposed to be one of his better ones. I think people who have played a lot of board games, especially older games, I'm always looking for older gems, and this feels like exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay.
Like an old, well-crafted gem.
1920 Wall Street.
I'm interested in this.
Yeah.
So this is a series of games that are an hour long, small boxes, which is great for traveling to conventions. And this is a 3 to 5 player auction stock market-y game. The reason that we haven't played this game thus far is because Neelan won't learn the
Kellen has given me the rules twice at 2 different game nights and be like, hey, you're not doing anything right now. Learn the rules for this.
That is what friends do.
All right. You guys said no to Splatter, but let's see if you can hold up when I bring up Bus. The new Bus. Uh-oh.
Yeah, I would do Bus.
I'm not even close on Bus.
Oh, really?
I'd rather do Antiquity than
Time
Bus.
travel, pick and deliver? All right,
Yeah.
forget about it. Chicken Caesar? I feel like I'm down for another game of Chicken Caesar.
Ooh, I would do that.
No, Kellen is killing Chicken Caesar.
No.
Oh, God. Well, how come you're knowing Chicken Caesar? That's my type of game.
That was such a weird
It's
game.
too long.
It's a negotiation game.
I can't say this word, and I've been reminded every time, but the new Jordan Draper container-like game, Tokyo...
TSUKIJI.
Someone told us. Hayashida told us.
TSUKIJI Market. I don't know.
It was TSUKIJI.
TSUKIJI Market by Jordan Draper.
This was on my list of most anticipated games, so that's definitely a yes for me. Dylan?
Yeah, I'll do that.
All right. Put it on the list.
It's on the list. It's container, but not container in Japan.
I have one that I would love to do if we get a chance. And I think you're all going to agree to this, but I would like a good game of Hunter Teutonica.
For sure.
Happen.
100% in. He's in.
Up.
Yeah,
Yes.
great. Yeah,
Let's
Kellen
make
does
that
the
happen.
thumbs up for the podcast.
I'm so
Great,
excited.
Kellen. Okay. 2 more. I'm not even out of the seas yet of my games to play, and then we're probably going to have to end it here. But Crystal Palace, just traded for it. My number 1 most anticipated game. Okay, Kellen is a no, right?
Damn.
It's
all right.
Football, even though it's not even associated, it's just the connotation.
All right. Well, then you're going to say no to this. Cooper Island?
Oh, no, I do want to play that, actually.
Kellen, no. Kellen is going to ruin this trip for me. We're going to end up playing
50 games of Crass Carrier.
Yeah, and Diplomacy. How about I just got Dogs of War. Can you play that, for goodness sake?
Oh, I would definitely do that. That's
Do you
a
have
great
all the
game.
Kickstarter
I
exclusives?
don't, but at least
So
I want to play
why
it.
did you even pick it up when you knew I already had all the good stuff? Yeah, I played Dogs of War. But we have just derailed here completely.
Yeah, but we added a
It's
little
kinda
fun
fun.
thing.
No,
It's
it's
fun
kinda
for
funny.
listeners. They like this kind of stuff.
They love fun. The listeners love fun. And back to our topic,
back to our
Mark,
regular-
and back to our actual programming, Mark.
Right.
Just wants to play games all day.
I just want to make us accountable.
What wisdom would you give a con goer?
I
already gave my wisdom.
Yeah, and I
it was
think I did too.
lead with the best. Well,
I would say pick games that you want to play, either of your own that you haven't played, or new games that you know you'll have access to at the cons. A lot of cons have, libraries where you can play a lot of the hottest, newest games that are otherwise difficult to find. I would say target those games and make sure you play them, because no matter what, no matter how the rest of your con goes, you know that if you play these games, you'll have a good experience, or you'll at least like check off boxes that you know in advance that you want to check off.
Yeah, either through the library or through like the myriad other people that are at the convention, this is going to present a unique opportunity to play games that aren't in your circle of friends. So I think be open to the idea of that. If you see a game that you wouldn't otherwise have access to, the convention is the time to do it.
Yeah.
Right? Find the means to expose yourself to stuff that you wouldn't otherwise play. That would be my main takeaway.
I'd also say there is a draw to like over exerting yourself. I think that it's important to, like, as simple as this is, like, get some sleep between nights of the con so you're like fully refreshed the next day, so you're not like running on fumes for the entire convention. I know it's like really easy to get amped up and want to just like drive through and stay up playing games, but it can mess up, the rest of your experience.
There's 1,000,000% going to be a BGB trip to the Taco Bell Cantina on the Strip.
Is there?
Do you know what that is?
I think I've heard of this.
It's where the Baja Blast can have vodka in it.
Okay, great. Thank God for that. What do you mean? What the hell? I can buy a Baja Blast and put vodka in right now. Why is that such a draw?
You dirty man. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Board Game Barrage podcast. If you are going to be at Dice Tower Con West, or if you're at Dice Tower Con West, please join our Discord, and we'd love to play a game with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a channel specifically for hanging out with people at conventions, so use it.
Yeah.
You can find us on BoardGameBarrage.com. You can email us at BoardGameBarrage@gmail.com. Thank you, as always, to Heart Society Music for their song, What's on Your Mind, Kid, from their album, Wake the Queens. So long, and good night.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Mark.
Yes.
Mark. Get set.
I love it.
Tell us about a game that you play.
I'm going to loop that at the end of the podcast
for
sure.
new intro track.
For sure.
Moving on to our featured topic for the episode.
12, if I'm not mistaken.
Great. Perfectamundo. That's what my dad would say. Perfectamundo.
I'm going to loop that at the end of the podcast for sure.
New intro track.
For sure. For sure.
This is the new intro track.
Yes.
Mark. Get set.
I love it.
Mark. Get set.
I love it.
Mark. Get set.
I love it.
This is the new intro track.
Yes.